progress.
Okay, Bruchim Habayim. Welcome everyone to the inaugural Shiur. And before I tell you what the title of this new Seder is going to be, I want to give you a little bit of a taste for the operation and the theme of this particular Seder, and then I'll tell you the name of it. I don't want to give you the full background because that requires a complete separate shiur in and of itself. What the basis for this pattern is and this approach is, I want to give that a full treatment, but just so you should be able to appreciate what we're doing in our first year of Sefer Bereishis, I have to give you a little bit of background. There is a klal, and I told a number of people about it, and they were not familiar with this, that when it comes to brachos, you need chasima me'ein psicha. You need a conclusion similar to the way it started. And when I tell most people about that, they say, what? You need a chasima me'ein psicha? Why do you need a chasima me'ein psicha? Everybody knows you need me'ein hachasima samuch lechasima. You need, near the chasima of a bracha, an idea that is similar to the chasima. In other words, right before you say Baruch Atah Hashem HaGoyim L'chasadim Tovim L'Amo Yisrael, you need to say an idea similar to the way it ends. That most people are familiar with. That near the chasima it has to be a similar subject to the chasima. But that the beginning should be similar to the end. Where does it say that? It says in Shas, the beginning of a bracha should be similar to the end. Well, there is a Tosfos in Brachos and Daf Mem Vav who establishes a rule that, for example, in the bracha Hagoyim L'chasadim Tovim, it needs to have that the conclusion is similar to the way it began. Hamaver sheina me'eno yisnu me'afapai. That's the klal established by Tosfos. The Prisha and Siman Nun Tes also says. He says we need every bracha to have me'ein pesicha samuch l'chasima. And if you need samuch l'chasima me'ein pesicha, certainly you need that the chasima itself should be me'ein the psicha. So this is clearly enunciated by the Prisha. By the way, the Gemara in Brachas says on Daf Yud, any parsha that was beloved to David, he began with Ashrei, he ended with Ashrei. Tosfos says no, it doesn't only mean Ashrei. It's any parak that was chaviv to David. He always established the chasima me'ein the psicha. Like hallelujah, hallelujah. So we see this is not just a rule in brachos. This is a rule, let's say, in Tehillim. Maybe, perhaps you remember in our Haggadah Shel Pesach, we point out the Haggadah begins Hashata Hacha L'Shana Haba B'Ard Yisrael. It ends L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim. This is a klal in all Jewish literature. The end has to be similar to the beginning. By the way, some say that why does the Haggadah end Echad mi yodeya, like questions? Because it begins Manishtana with questions. And look no further than the Gemara in Saita. The Gemara says the Torah is kulay gmilas chasadim. It begins with gmilas chasadim, Hashem clothed Adam, and it ends with gmilas chasadim, Hashem buried Moshe Rabbeinu. So this is a rule in general by Jewish literature, and I think we can make the following very compelling case. If there's a rule by a bracha, it has to end similar to the beginning, then for sure it has to be that by Parshas in the Torah, it needs to end similar to the beginning. Because after all, brachos are called the tikkun rabbanon ke'ein da'iraisa tikkun. The rabbis always made their enactments similar to the Torah. So I would argue a parsha also must end similar to the way it begins. That's the theory. How far this is going to take us, we don't know. We can only begin. So in the inaugural shiur, I want to share with you a few thoughts on Parshas Bereishis, but we should have a separate shiur on establishing the veracity of the theory that Parshas have to begin and ends similarly. Let's begin with Bereishis. I tried this last night. I think you'll agree that at least for Bereishis, we definitely have demonstrated that this phenomenon exists. Okay. Well, now before we start, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. The name of this shiur. The name of the shiur is Pesacheinu Megadim. Say, where do you pull that one out of? Well, there's a pasuk in Shir HaShiurim. Hadudaim nasnu reach ve'al Pesacheinu kol Megadim. Now, I was looking for a pasuk that has some reference to beginnings and ends. I couldn't find too many with an end or a beginning or Bereishis. But Pesacheinu, I thought, is a good reference to a beginning. And Megadim, I'm not going to explain everything to you. But put it this way, Megadim has a lot of good letters that work out for me. Okay? Whoever could figure out at least two of the significance of the word Megadim will get a copy of the French edition of the Mystery and the Majesty. Okay? Or Spanish. You could don't say you want English. I'm not offering that. I'm offering the French or the Spanish edition. Okay? Pesacheinu Megadim. And then I realized this morning, Pesach is not only beginning, it's also you enter a doorway, you also exit. So Pesacheinu captures the beginning and end of the parsha, and Megadim, that I'm going to leave to you to figure out. Now, I do want to say an added support to this is there's a sefer called Reisha V'Seifa that my friend Reb Rafal Ansel of France told me about, of Reb David Abi Chatzera, Ateret Roshenu, the older brother Baba Sali, and he connects the first word of the parsha to the last word of the parsha. So he'll connect the word Bereishis to the Shem Havaya. So to me, this is good news and good news. Why good news and good? It's good news because it establishes that this is definitely an authentic principle. And it's good news is because he's not doing what I want to do. He's just connecting the words. That's not my job. God gave him room to connect the words. I'm going to connect the ideas. That's the space that I need. So here we go. Now, I brought from the Gemara in Soita that the Torah begins and ends with Chesed. That also gives me some wiggle room. Because I don't need to connect the very first pasuk with the very last pasuk. I'm connecting the beginning to the end. Now, if you feel that I'm above or beyond the threshold of the beginning and the end, you have the right to say, no, that this is not an acceptable entry for Pesacheinu Megadim. But let's start as follows. The third to last pasuk of Bereishis. Vayinochem Hashem ki asa es Adam. God reconsidered that He made man. Says Rashi, Davar acher vayinochem nehepcha machshavtoi shel makom mimidas rachamim lamidas hadin. God switched in His mind from the attribute of mercy to strict justice. That is mamish, the perfect, exact opposite from the way Bereishis begins. Bereishis begins, Bereishis bara Elokim. Rashi asks, what do you mean Bereishis bara Elokim? But it says, B'yoim beroi Hashem Elokim. Rashi says, yeah. Hashem Allah b'machshavtai, to create the world, b'midas hadin. And Hashem saw that it couldn't last, so what did Hashem do? Hikdim midas rachamim b'shitfa midas hadin. Bereishis begins. God wanted to create the world of midas hadin, and He reconsidered, and He created barachamim. And Parshas Bereishis ends. God would have liked to continue to run the world barachamim, vayinochem, and He reconsidered, and He had to switch it back to din. Rashi says the same words. Allah b'machshava lefanav. This is what was Allah b'machshavtai. In the first pasuk of Bereishis, it was Allah b'machshavtai midas hadin, and He had to switch it to rachamim. And in the end of the parsha, it was Allah b'machshavtai rachamim, and He had to switch it to din. Fine. So you say, okay, what else you got? Well, Bereishis begins, Vayar Elohim es ha'ar ki tov. God saw the light, and it was good. It's the fourth pasuk. Vayar Elohim es ha'ar ki tov. Okay. And the fourth to last pasuk, Vayar Hashem ki rabba ra'as ha'adam. God saw it was bad. The fourth pasuk, Vayar Elohim es ha'ar ki tov. God saw the light was good. And now God has to reverse course. Vayinachem. So the fourth pasuk, Vayar Elohim es ha'ar. The Midas Hadin saw the light that it was good. Even Midas Hadin saw the goodness. And in the end, Vayar Havaya, Midas Harachamim saw ki rabba ra'as, that it was bad. It's an exactly perfect parallel. Just the opposite. Next. The Medrash says, Vayar Elohim es ha'ar ki tov, zeh maseh tzadikim. The pasuk, God saw the light was good. These are the acts of the tzadikim. Oh, really? How does Bereishis end? Bereishis ends, V'noyach motzachein b'nei Hashem. These are the maseh tzadikim. So it starts, Vayar Hashem es ha'ar ki tov, which is maseh tzadikim, and it ends, V'noyach motzachein b'nei Hashem. These are the maseh tzadikim. Next. You ready? No problem. Here we go. Bereishis. Bereishis is the beginning, the start. It's always important to get off to a good start. It's always important to start your day in the right way. The first thing you do, you want to think about Hashem. You want to thank Hashem Moida'ani. You want to wash Negavasa. You want to look at the mezuzah. The beginnings always are good. What is the force in this world that opposes Bereishis? What is the force of evil that opposes Bereishis? Amalek. Bereishis, Goyim, Amalek. Do you know, whenever Amalek appears in the Chumash, we have the mitzvah Bikurim right after, the end of Kiseitse Amalek, beginning of Kisavai, Mikra Bikurim. Why? Bikurim is Bereishis Pri Ho'adama. Amalek is counteracting Bereishis. We once discussed this at length. Whenever Amalek appears in Chamisha Chumshei Torah, it's in the context of the mitzvah Bikurim. Which mitzvah is Amalek against? They take the Arla and they're Zara Klape Mala. They're against Mila. Mila is the first mitzvah, Bereishis, yeah? So when things are good, it's Bereishis Bar Elohim. But in the end, it wasn't a good Bereishis. Vayar Hashem ki rabba ra'as ha'adam ba'aretz b'chol yetze machshavos libay rak ra kol hayoim. Imre Yemes says rak ra kol hayoim soifei tevois Amalek. Therefore, what does God say? Vayoim Hashem emcha emcha emcha. Baal HaTurim says emcha. Machai emcha zecher Amalek. The Zohar writes, the Dar Hamabel were Mizera Amalek. So it begins Bereishis, the good Bereishis. And the end of the parsha, why does God reverse course? It's also Bereishis, a different Bereishis. Now it's Bereishis Goyim Amalek. So the beginning of the parsha and the end of the parsha are mirror opposites. Bereishis, Amalek. Vayar Elohim ki tov, Vayar Hashem ki rabba ra'as. Okay. Next. What's the opening Rashi on Chumash? Rashi says, why does the Torah begin that God created the world? Why do we need to know God created the world? Isn't this a book of mitzvahs? It's a start. HaChadesh Hazeh Lachem Rosh Chodashim. Says Rashi, Koyach Ma'asav Higid La'amoy Loses Lahem Nachas Goyim. Because in 2025, you might hear on the news that, I don't know, people want the land of Israel. They think it's theirs. So the Torah begins, listen, God created the world. He gives Eretz Yisrael and the world to whoever He wants. Nobody has absolute ownership over this world. It's God's world, and He does with man as He pleases. Okay, that is perfectly connected to the end of the parsha. The same way God tells the Gentiles, you don't own the land of Israel, it doesn't belong to you. You don't have inherent right to the land. So the end of the parsha, Vayomer Hashem, Emches Adam Asher Barasi, Me'al Pnei Adama, I'm going to wipe out man. Why can't man say, when are you going to wipe us out? It's our land, we own the world. Why can't we say, the Aretz Nasan Lifnei Adam? No, the answer is, Kayach Ma'asav Higid La'amoy. God created the world. He does with man as he pleases. Okay. One more thing. The parsha ends with Noach Matza Chen Be'enei Hashem. Noach found favor in the eyes of Hashem. Why? What did Noach do that he found favor? We know that the Gemara in Ksuba says that someone who learns Torah is Matza Chen. Ayeles Ahavim V'Ya'ala Chen. And we know Noach learned Torah. Rashi brings in Parshas Noach learned Torah. So the Noach Matza Chen Be'enei Hashem, it's because he learned Torah. So the parsha begins, Bereishis bara Elokim b'shvil Torah shenikra Bereishis. The whole world was created for the sake of the Torah. That's called Bereishis. The world was created for the Torah. And therefore, if you want to know, why is there one man while the whole world is being destroyed? There's one man who finds favor in the eyes of Hashem. That's because he took advantage of the purpose of creation. Namely, Noach was oisek b'Torah, like Rashi will bring Parshas Noach, and because of that, he was Matza Chen. So these are 6 offerings for our first week, Pesacheinu Megadim, connecting the opening of Parshas Bereishis to the end. And Be'ezus Hashem, we have a whole week to be mispalel, that Hashem gives us good ideas for Parshas Noach. But I didn't want to give this to you Monday or Tuesday. It's already after Bereishis. This way, you could go into Simchas Torah and Bereishis already knowing that we've completed Davar Yafa B'itai, and we're on our way in the next series called Pesacheinu Megadim. And on that note, I wish everybody, you should be zoicha, that your whole year should be, Hashem should be mamtik, like pre-Megadim. You should have sweetness and delicacies and the bounty of Hashem throughout the whole year. Wishing everyone a Piska Tava and Chag Kosher V'Sameach. Thank you very much.